If you haven't already watched the videos titled Introduction to Team Birth and Team Birth Huddles in Labor and Delivery, please pause and watch those two videos first. The Assisted Delivery Discussion Guide is a patient-centered tool that's designed to support team communication and shared decision-making around an operative delivery. The content of this tool is written in patient-friendly language and supported by consensus statements from both ACOG and SMFM, the safe prevention of the primary cesarean delivery. The purpose of this tool is to provide the minimum indications necessary to proceed with an operative delivery. We strongly recommend that this tool is introduced prior to the need for its utilization. When patients are educated early, they have the opportunity to read and familiarize themselves with the content. They're much better equipped to engage and to ask relevant questions. Let's walk through the separate components of the Assisted Delivery Discussion Guide. The top section is broken out by mom, with the primary reason being request. We do recognize that there are some significant clinical indications when a cesarean section might be warranted for maternal health. Although these circumstances are rare, typically they are more urgent in nature, and having a team discussion with this guide is likely not optimal. Therefore, the only listed indication under mom is request. The second category is baby. The indications presented are concerns about the well-being for the baby. If it's a Category 3 tracing, do not use this tool and proceed with patient care. However, most of the time you'll be utilizing this guide with a Category 2 tracing. Those can be tricky, and ideally, this is when the team will come together to discuss and assess what they're seeing, what's concerning, what's encouraging, and arrive at shared decision-making to move forward. The last category is progress. This is probably where you'll end up using this tool the most and where it will be the most helpful. The three sections are broken down by slow induction, slow progress, and prolonged pushing without progress. Now let's return to the clinical scenario from the video titled Team Birth in Labor and Delivery, when Aaliyah has already been admitted to labor and delivery and has received an epidural. In this scenario, labor progress has stalled with no cervical change for over 4 hours.
Hey, Dr. Chen, this is Trisha. I'm currently at the bedside with Aaliyah, her doula, Mariana, and her support person, Ispeya. We were just having a brief conversation about Pitocin. I wanted to give you an update on where we are. Is now a good time for a speakerphone huddle for you?
Sure.
Okay, excellent. So first, we did just do another cervical exam. It has been about 3 hours since I had last checked Aaliyah's cervix. Unfortunately, she has not made a lot of cervical change. She's still 6 centimeters. Her contractions also have started spacing out a little bit more. They're currently about 4.5 to 8 minutes apart. Previously, Aaliyah had requested to avoid Pitocin, but it sounds like she's actually more on board with exploring that option now.
Oh, I would love to start Pitocin, but Aaliyah, do you really feel comfortable with Pitocin?
I'm feeling comfortable after the epidural, and after talking with Mariana and Trisha, I'm just ready to get this labor going.
Okay, well, let's do it. We can start you on pretty low dose of Pitocin, just enough to get these contractions a little closer together and a little stronger. So I think that sounds like a great plan.
Did you guys have any questions?
I have a request. Could we wait to do another cervical exam whenever you start Pitocin?
Yeah, I'm totally good with that. I mean, her water's broken, so there's some risk of infection. So let's plan this. Maybe 3 hours or so after you start the Pitocin, I'll come by and check her myself so I can see if we've made progress.
That sounds great. Ispeya, do you have any questions?
I think my one question was about Pitocin and whether or not it could increase the risk of a C-section.
Oh, that's a good question. And I think that's a fairly common thing that people get worried about. But at this point, Aaliyah's still contracting on her own, so we're using the Pitocin just to get them a little bit closer together. Trisha, if you can pull out the Assisted Delivery Discussion Guide, that, you guys, has all the rules for sort of how we decide if somebody might need a C-section. And there's all sorts of guidelines on there for like how long the cervix can be stuck at a certain dilation before we start thinking about C-section. So it's a little bit complicated, but now's a good time to look at it. Not because I think Aaliyah will need a C-section, but just so you have some idea of what the rules are that we all use when we make those decisions.
That's perfect. And actually, I went ahead and gave it to her, and I'll go ahead, Dr. Chen, I'll plan to see you again in 3 hours. We can hop off the phone and I'll review the assisted delivery discussion guide with them.
Sounds good. I'll come see you guys in a few hours.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye. So on the assisted delivery discussion guide, it does have it broken down for mom, baby in progress and when we would anticipate moving forward or transitioning to a C-section. For mom, it really comes down to maternal request, and there can be actually a variety of reasons for that. For baby right now, Samuel looks really good on the monitor. He's coping well with labor. If at any point that were to change or we had any concerns, I would immediately let you know, and we would call Dr. Chen again at the bedside to let her know. But right now, that's not a concern of ours. You were not in induction, so we don't even actually have to look at that category. But right now we are in this phase of slower progress, which is totally normal, Aaliyah. This does happen. I don't want you to feel discouraged. But the only point that we would consider moving forward is after we've had the Pitocin going for 6 hours and we still haven't had any additional cervical change. That's whenever that discussion for C-section with Dr. Chen would become more prevalent.
Okay, so it sounds like we have some time.
Yes, you have plenty of time. We're just gonna go ahead and start low dose Pitocin. So I'm gonna run and grab that, but do you guys have any more questions before I leave?
Can I update the whiteboard?
That would be wonderful. Yes, please, Mariana, thank you.
Dr. Chen and Tricia will utilize the assisted delivery discussion guide to educate the patient on criteria before moving forward. Bringing the tool out at this point allows the patient time to first understand the clinical team's concern with slow progress, but more importantly, to provide transparent care, allowing the patient to be brought into the conversation, ask questions, and provide options to move forward so that Aaliyah can participate in shared decision making.
So I just checked again. I know we've been checking you a bit, but it's really because we've been watching your progress so closely. And I really would call you still 6 centimeters. So if we think back, the last time I checked you, which was now hours ago, and I put in that special monitor inside the uterus to measure your contractions. Your contractions are really, really good. So we expected that by now your cervix should be opening up more, but still you're at 6 centimeters. So let's look at this guide again. I know we talked about this a couple of huddles ago, but when we talked about, and I think Ice Bay, it was you who were concerned about the risk for C-section with the Pitocin. But when we look at where you are, you're kind of now in the slow progress, where we've seen that you had good contractions for at least the last 4 hours using that special monitor, but your cervix still hasn't opened up more. You're really still at 6 centimeters. And it's been that way for even before I put in that monitor. So my point is that I think we've tried really, really hard to get your labor progress to keep going, and we have not been successful. So at this point, I would really recommend C-section. I know it's not what you wanted, but we can talk a little bit about that. But I just wondered, Tricia, do you have any other ideas? Because I feel like we've kind of done everything we can.
No, and we've been working together as a team. We've been doing lots of position changes. My concern, and I did share this with Aaliyah, was with my last cervical exam. It just felt like perhaps Samuel was not coming down straight in the birth canal, so he's a little crooked.
Mariana, any ideas?
I think that we have tried everything. What do you think, Aaliyah?
I'm disappointed. This wasn't what my original plan was.
Yeah, for sure. We have definitely tried to prepare for the worst and the best, right? So, as long as you feel comfortable.
I'm ready to get my labor going, so I think C-section might be the right choice.
I think it's the right decision. I want to make sure you all feel comfortable about it. If we kind of go back to our labor board, like right now, you're looking great. Your epidural's actually been working well, so you're still comfortable. And it sounds like if you had your choice, you would still want to continue labor. Samuel's doing fine. He's probably, just so in love with his uterine home, he doesn't want to get out of there. So he looks great on the monitor. But your labor progress, that's sort of the one thing that's now really been stuck based on the guidelines that we use. And the reason these are on paper and we share them with you is because these are the standards that we use around the country. So these are not guidelines that Trisha and I, randomly came up with. This is what would be recommended anywhere. And at this point, with your cervix being stuck and having good contractions for several hours, the safest thing is probably really to go ahead with C-section, as long as you guys all feel comfortable.
That makes sense.
All right, well, let's do it. Who gets to be part of the birthday party? I mean, Trisha and I get to go, but I don't know, you guys might have to draw straws.
The purpose of Team Birth is to include the patient in every single step of their labor, delivery, and postpartum care. The Labor Support Guide provides options for patients to choose how to best support their labor and identify ways in which the clinical team can intervene if necessary. The Assisted Delivery Guide allows patients to understand when a cesarean section becomes medically necessary. Through patient interviews, Birthing People have shared the tool really provided clarity and helped reduce those lingering what-if questions that naturally occur after a delivery. The goal and purpose of all these tools is to support our patients to be active participants in their care.
I know at one point with one of our clients that the doulas was serving, they had an emergency C-section that wasn't a part of the birth plan, but they felt very prepared going into that experience because they got all the options, they knew the why this needed to happen, and was really just prepared. And so while it wasn't what they expected, they felt prepared to go into that emergency C-section and still feel like they had a good birth outcome or birth experience. Team Birth is really shifting how patients feel about their experiences because they do feel more centered. They feel like things are being asked of them and not done to them during that labor and birth experience. And I think those experiences, of course, are people within the community. And so the narrative is now changing about certain hospitals who are implementing Team Birth because it's a more caring and team-centered environment.
Leaving a birth experience with a positive feeling just sets a family up for success moving forward. It really does impact them for the rest of their life.